The night my wife threw my suitcase onto the cold pavement, I realized something terrifying. The woman I had spent 12 years loving looked at me like I was nothing more than an obstacle standing between her and success. As the expensive glass doors of our luxury home slammed shut behind her, she smiled with the confidence of someone who believed she had finally won. She had just secured a $33 million business deal, the biggest achievement of her career, and she was convinced she no longer needed the quiet husband who had stood beside her through every failure. But what she didn't know was that in exactly 3 days, the very contract she celebrated would reveal a truth capable of destroying her pride forever. My name wasn't hidden in the fine print, it appeared on every single page. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always returns, that loyalty should never be forgotten, and that people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. I never wanted fame or recognition. While my wife Isabella dreamed of becoming one of the most successful executives in New York, I found purpose in working quietly behind the scenes. We met when neither of us had much money. She had ambition burning in her eyes, while I had patience and an ability to solve problems. Whenever she doubted herself, I stayed awake helping her prepare presentations. Whenever investors rejected her ideas, I encouraged her to try again. She often said we were one team, two hearts chasing one dream. I believed every word. Years passed, and her company slowly grew. Promotions came, expensive dinners replaced simple date nights, and luxury became part of our everyday lives. Yet with every new achievement, something else quietly disappeared. Gratitude slowly turned into entitlement. The woman who once celebrated every small victory with tears of happiness now measured people's worth by their bank accounts and business titles. I noticed the change, but love has a strange way of making us ignore painful truths until they're impossible to escape. The biggest opportunity of her career arrived when an international investment group offered negotiations for a massive expansion project worth $33 million. Isabella became obsessed. She barely slept, barely ate, and barely spoke to me unless she needed something. I still helped however I could. Because of my previous experience as a corporate legal consultant before leaving that career to support our family, I quietly reviewed documents whenever she left them on the kitchen table. I noticed dangerous clauses that could have destroyed the agreement. Without seeking credit, I prepared detailed notes and anonymously suggested revisions through her company's legal department. Those corrections eventually became part of the final draft, though Isabella never realized who had saved the negotiations. When the deal was finally signed, reporters celebrated her as a brilliant businesswoman. Cameras flashed as she smiled proudly, calling herself a self-made success. Not once did she mention the people who had sacrificed for her journey. That evening, she returned home wearing an expensive designer dress, carrying champagne that cost more than our first month's rent together years ago. Instead of celebrating with me, she calmly placed divorce papers on the dining table. She told me she had outgrown our marriage. According to her, successful people couldn't afford emotional baggage. She believed I lacked ambition, that I had become ordinary, and that she deserved someone who matched her new lifestyle. Before I could even process her words, security guards she had hired carried my belongings outside. Family photographs crashed onto the sidewalk. My clothes scattered across the street. Neighbors watched silently as the woman I loved pointed toward the gate, making it painfully clear that I no longer belonged in the life we had built together. I spent that night in a modest hotel room, staring at old photographs on my phone. I wasn't crying because I had lost wealth. I was grieving the loss of the woman who once held my hand through life's hardest moments. Success had changed her, but perhaps it had only revealed who she had always been underneath. 3 days later, everything changed. The investment group's executive legal team gathered with Isabella for one final compliance review before releasing the first funding installment. Confident and smiling, she casually flipped through the thick contract. Then her expression froze. At the bottom of every single page appeared one signature required for legal validation. Mine. Not because I owned her company. Not because I was secretly the investor. But because years earlier, before leaving corporate law, I had become one of the founding architects of the investment group's legal compliance framework. Every contract exceeding $20 million required approval from an independent senior compliance consultant whose intellectual property and legal verification system remained permanently attached to the documentation. My legal methodologies, compliance templates, and registered certification process had become industry standards. My signature authenticated every page. The room reportedly fell silent. For the first time, Isabella realized the men she had dismissed as ordinary had quietly shaped the very system protecting the biggest deal of her career. Every executive in that room respected my work, even if they had never met me personally. While she had chased recognition, I had built something lasting, something based on integrity rather than applause. That afternoon, my phone rang. She wanted forgiveness. Not because she suddenly remembered our wedding vows, but because she finally understood my value. I declined the meeting. Not out of revenge. Not out of anger. Simply because respect cannot be rediscovered only after humiliation. Weeks later, I learned that the investment group completed the project successfully, but Isabella resigned soon afterward. Public success couldn't silence the private regret she carried. She had achieved everything she once dreamed of, yet lost the one person who had loved her long before the money arrived. As for me, I returned to consulting, mentoring young entrepreneurs who believed success should never cost their humanity. Every lecture I gave ended with the same message. Wealth can open doors, but character decides who remains welcome inside. Titles fade. Luxury loses its shine. The people who quietly stand beside you during your darkest seasons are worth more than every million-dollar contract in the world. Before we reach the end, I have one special request. Please comment below with the words, "Character matters." I'd love to know how many people still believe loyalty is more valuable than success. If this story touched your heart, reminded you to appreciate the people who truly love you, or inspired you to stay humble no matter how successful life becomes, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. Your support encourages us to continue creating emotional stories that remind the world that kindness, gratitude, and integrity will always outlast money. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving that your character remains unshaken, even after your heart has been broken.